Welcome back to the English for Life podcast. I'm Charlotte Kingsley, and today we're diving into a topic that silently frustrates millions of English learners: why your brain rejects complex grammar rules and how you can rewire it to finally make grammar flow effortlessly when you speak. If you've ever studied grammar for hours, understood it perfectly in a lesson, but then completely froze or forgot it in real conversation, you're not alone. And it's not because you're bad at English, it's because of how the human brain is designed to learn and process language. Understanding this is the key to unlocking a new way of mastering English. The first thing we need to understand is that your brain is not naturally built to memorize grammar rules in an abstract academic way. Grammar books, charts, and complicated explanations are a human invention, a recent one, actually. Language itself evolved for fast communication, not for rule memorization. Early humans didn't sit around a fire discussing past perfect continuous. They just spoke, repeated patterns, and learned naturally. So, when you force yourself to think about grammar as long formulas, you're going against millions of years of brain evolution. Let's talk about cognitive load. Your brain's working memory is like a small table. You can only fit about 4 things on it at once. When you're trying to speak English, you already have to think about vocabulary, meaning, pronunciation, and listening to the other person. If you try to add "remember this complex grammar formula" on top of that, the table collapses. Your brain's survival instinct kicks in. It throws away the grammar rule to avoid a breakdown. This is not laziness. It's efficiency. But here's the fascinating part. When grammar becomes automatic, it doesn't take up any space on that table. Just like you don't think about how to walk or ride a bike, fluent speakers don't consciously think about complex grammar. They've trained it into muscle memory. That's exactly what we're going to explore: how to trick your brain into doing this automatically. One huge reason for grammar rejection is that rules are usually disconnected from meaning and emotion. Think about the last time you memorized a grammar rule from a textbook. Maybe use the third conditional for hypothetical past situations. If I had studied harder, I would have passed the exam. When you learned that, your brain only saw abstract symbols. But imagine instead you were telling a story to your friend about a real regret. "Oh, if I had studied harder, I would have passed." And you felt that moment emotionally. That hits a different part of the brain. Emotional connections activate the amygdala, a part that tells your memory, "Hey, this is important." Abstract rules rarely trigger that. Another brain principle at play is pattern recognition. Native speakers don't learn through rules. They hear thousands of examples, their brain detects patterns subconsciously, and then they just know what sounds right. You can replicate this as an adult by creating massive exposure to sentence-based input. Instead of studying the rule for present perfect continuous, you collect 20 real-life sentences that use it, repeat them, and notice the similarities. For example, "I've been working here since 2018. She's been learning piano for 3 years. They've been waiting for hours." Your brain slowly recognizes. Okay, when we talk about actions that started in the past and are still happening, we use this structure. No rule memorization needed. The brain learns through frequency and repetition. And let's not forget fear and performance pressure. Many learners know grammar in theory but cannot use it when speaking because their brain is hijacked by stress. When you're anxious, your body releases cortisol, which literally reduces the functioning of your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reasoning and recalling rules. This is why you suddenly forget everything during conversations or exams. To fix this, you need low-stress, high-frequency practice where mistakes feel safe. For example, practicing grammar by speaking to yourself, using role-play apps, or recording voice notes. These train your brain without fear of judgment. Now, let's talk about chunking, one of the most powerful tools to beat grammar rejection. Chunking means storing whole phrases or sentence templates as single units in your brain. Instead of separately remembering the subject, auxiliary verb, tense, and object, you memorize them together as a natural phrase. For instance, it's been a long time since becomes one single block in your mind. Later, you just drop new words into that template. It's been a long time since we met. The more chunks you collect, the less grammar you have to think about consciously. This chunking process also works beautifully for complex tenses and conditional sentences, which are usually a nightmare when learned as rules. For example, instead of memorizing the technical explanation of third conditional, you could learn multiple chunks. If I had known, I would have, or had I seen, I would have. After using them repeatedly, you'll produce complex grammar naturally without thinking about clauses or auxiliary verbs. It's just a pattern your brain recognizes. We also need to consider the concept of input flooding. The brain loves repetition and frequency. If you only encounter a grammar structure a few times, your brain won't prioritize it. But if you immerse yourself in dozens or hundreds of examples within a short period, your brain goes, "Ah, this keeps happening, it must be important." This triggers neuroplastic changes, strengthening the neural pathways that make that grammar automatic. For example, listening to a podcast episode with 50 examples of relative clauses will train your brain faster than reading one page of grammar explanation. Another overlooked factor is timing and sleep. Studies in cognitive neuroscience show that when you practice grammar and then sleep, your brain consolidates those patterns much more effectively. During deep sleep, your brain literally replays what you practiced, embedding it into long-term memory. This is why short, frequent practice sessions are far better than one long study marathon. 10 minutes of targeted grammar practice before bed can sometimes outperform hours of daytime studying. But perhaps the biggest secret is shifting from a rule-first mindset to a message-first mindset. Fluent communication doesn't come from perfectly recalling every rule. It comes from your brain focusing on the message you want to deliver. When you obsess over grammar correctness, your brain enters monitor mode, slowing you down. But when you focus on what you want to express, grammar aligns naturally over time because your brain prioritizes clarity and meaning. This is why storytelling, conversations, and real communication beat traditional drills every single time. Remember, your brain isn't rejecting grammar because you're incapable, it's rejecting it because of how it's presented to you. Complex, disconnected rules feel unnatural and high risk to your subconscious mind. But when you make grammar meaningful, safe, repeated, and chunked, your brain not only accepts it, it automates it. And that's where true fluency begins. Now that you understand why your brain instinctively pushes away complex grammar rules, let's go even deeper and uncover how you can rewire your mind step by step to stop fighting grammar and start using it with ease. This is where real transformation happens, not by memorizing yet another rule chart, but by strategically training your brain like an athlete builds reflexes. The first step is immersive micro-practice. Most learners make the mistake of thinking they need to study grammar in big, heavy sessions, an hour of exercises, pages of explanations. The brain actually hates that. It feels like a threat and activates its rejection mode. Instead, you want to feed your brain small digestible doses multiple times a day. Think of it like brushing your teeth. You don't scrub for 30 minutes once a week. You do a tiny habit every day. For grammar, this means practicing 2-3 sentences repeatedly while commuting, waiting in line, or even while cooking. For example, instead of reading a full chapter on conditionals, you could whisper to yourself 5 variations. If I had more time, I would travel. If I had studied harder, I would have passed. That short burst builds a stronger neural link than a long, exhausting session. Next is shadow training, a method often used by polyglots to automate grammar. Shadowing means listening to natural speech and repeating it immediately, matching the rhythm, intonation, and structure. When you do this, your brain isn't consciously analyzing grammar. It's physically training your speech muscles to reproduce correct structures without thinking. Over time, grammar rules that once felt complex, like question inversion or passive voice, become natural reflexes. You can shadow podcasts, movies, or audiobooks. The secret is consistency. Even 5 minutes a day can rewire your grammar patterns. Let's talk about error rewiring. When learners make a grammar mistake and correct themselves, they often feel shame or frustration. This emotion tells the brain, "This is dangerous, let's avoid trying." That's exactly why your brain freezes during conversations. We need to reverse this response. Each time you notice a grammar slip, don't scold yourself, celebrate it as a success. Why? Because awareness is proof that your brain is updating its model of English. Neurologically, celebrating mistakes releases dopamine, making your brain more willing to try again. Over weeks, you'll notice you correct yourself faster and eventually stop making the same errors. Another advanced tactic is contextual grammar anchoring. This is a mental trick where you link grammar patterns to specific contexts or situations rather than abstract definitions. For example, instead of memorizing, use past perfect for actions completed before another past action. You anchor it to a vivid story. By the time I arrived at the party, everyone had left. You then create multiple versions of this in real-life contexts, arriving late to school, missing a bus, losing an opportunity. This visual and emotional link makes the grammar stick permanently because your brain remembers scenes, not formulas. We also need to leverage spaced retrieval. Research in cognitive psychology shows that recalling grammar structures at increasing time intervals strengthens memory far more than rereading rules. This means instead of drilling 50 exercises in one day, you practice a grammar pattern today, recall it tomorrow, again in 3 days, and again in a week. Apps like Anki or simple sticky notes on your desk can help. For example, you write, "If I had, I would have," on a card and challenge yourself to make 3 new sentences each time you see it. This transforms grammar from a fragile memory into a long-lasting skill. Now, let's add dual-channel learning to the mix. The brain processes spoken and written language in partially different neural pathways. To fully master complex grammar, you need to train both. This means reading examples input, speaking them out loud output, and sometimes even writing them from memory. A simple but powerful exercise: read a short dialogue using complex grammar, close the text, and try to reproduce it orally. If you can recreate it smoothly, your brain is encoding the grammar holistically, not just recognizing it but owning it. Another powerful but overlooked method is grammar chunk chaining. Imagine you want to master relative clauses, reported speech, and past perfect. Normally, you'd study them separately. But chaining combines them into single sentences. I told my friend that I had met someone who used to live next door to my cousin. This sentence packs multiple grammar rules into one memory unit. Practicing such chained chunks trains your brain to handle complexity without conscious effort, just like athletes practice combo moves instead of isolated skills. Let's not forget listening floods. Many learners only study grammar actively, but the brain also learns passively through massive input. If you want your subconscious to accept advanced grammar, you need to drown it in correct examples. This doesn't mean studying, it means surrounding yourself with English where complex grammar appears naturally. Watch shows, listen to interviews, audiobooks, or podcasts where native speakers use intricate structures. Even if you don't understand every word, your brain is mapping the patterns silently. Over time, you'll start producing those patterns spontaneously because they feel normal. And here's a fascinating neuroscience hack: practice grammar while moving. Physical movement like walking or gesturing while speaking boosts brain activity and memory retention. This is called embodied cognition. Try walking around your room, making hand gestures, or acting out mini stories as you practice grammar sentences. It engages the motor cortex, linking language to physical actions, making it much harder to forget. Finally, you need to build grammar confidence loops. Start with very small wins. Choose one complex structure, for example, I should have done, and master it through repetition, anchoring, and real-life usage. Once you can say it effortlessly in conversations, celebrate that success. This dopamine reward tells your brain, grammar is safe, I can do this. With each success, your brain resists grammar less and accepts more complexity. Before you know it, you'll speak naturally with structures you once thought impossible. The key takeaway is this: your brain is trainable. Its initial rejection of complex grammar isn't a fixed limitation, it's a survival response. By changing your approach, making grammar emotional, chunked, repeated, safe, embodied, and celebrated, you can literally rewire your neural pathways. Over time, speaking complex English will feel as natural as your native language, not because you memorized more rules, but because you've trained your brain to think in English patterns automatically. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope these insights help you overcome those tricky grammar challenges and make your English learning journey smoother and more enjoyable. Don't forget to hit the like button if you found this episode useful, leave a comment to share your thoughts or questions, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. Stay motivated, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next episode with more tips and strategies to boost your English skills. Take care and happy learning.